Welcome back to With the First Pick. On this edition of The Perfect Fix, they're going to fix the Los Angeles Rams. I'm Ryan Wilson, that's former Titans GM Rand Carthon. Before we get going, as always, hey, Rams fans, let us know in the comments what you think the biggest need is heading to the offseason. Special teams was a concern, no doubt about it. But other than that, it's hard to be upset with how this 2025 version of the Rams played outside of the last two meetings with the Seahawks. There were a lot of things to be excited about. We did not know in August if Matthew Stafford was going to even play the season, let alone be an MVP candidate. And by the time you watch this, he very well may have already won the MVP. But either way, let us know what you think about your most important to-do list for the Rams now that we are into the offseason for LA. All right, Rand, neither Chris Shula, the DC, or Nate Shieldhouse, who's on the offensive staff, got head coaching jobs, so they'll be back. Sean McVay and Les Snead got much well-deserved extension, so that's a great thing. They did lose Mike LaFleur to the Cards. He's their new head coach there. And they also hired a new special teams coach in Bubba Ventrone. So that's good news there. So some more continuity for the most part on the coaching staff. We know Sean McVay calls plays, so you're losing Mike LaFleur, but you're not losing your play caller. And perhaps most importantly, we've done 30 of these perfect fix for your NFL team. I think this is the first time we're leading with the special teams coordinator being perhaps the most important offseason hire.
Yeah, absolutely. And Bubba Ventrone is one of the more respected guys in the league at the position. He's a young, up-and-coming coach. If you remember, he played a ton of special teams throughout his career. That's where he made his hay as a player. But it's just going to be really important for them to fix that to where that allows them to have a team that plays complete football in terms of having – you know what the play caller is going to be on offense. You know the defense is going to be good and in good hands with Chris Shula. And now you just have to fix that with Bubba Ventrone. And I think he's a good fit for what they want to do. The one I want to go back to that you mentioned briefly was Nate Shieldhouse. He's created a lot of buzz for himself as a candidate to be a head coach. We interviewed him at the Titans for the offensive coordinator position when Brian Callahan was hired, and he did a really good job and really impressed in that spot. So I expect him to be promoted to offensive coordinator if they hadn't already, to be the next guy in that role, because you mentioned Mike LaFleur went from offensive coordinator there to head coach of the Arizona Cardinals. So I think the natural progression for Nate Shieldhouse now is to become the offensive coordinator and take that next step in his career. You also mentioned Sean McVay and Les Snead got very well-deserved extensions. I think those two guys have been great working together just in terms of just getting it done. A lot of what they do is unconventional. It does not fit the normal scout model from the way they conduct meetings, the way they do the combine, the all-star game process, which is very, very different. Les has always been an outside-of-the-box thinker. Friend of the program here, did the series with us this summer and allowed people to get a little bit of peek behind the curtain into his brain and his thought process. But whatever they've been doing at the Rams has worked. And so they started with the F the pick model, where they were trading away first-round picks. I believe Jared Verse was the Rams' first-round pick under Les Snead and Sean McVay together, and what a hell of a way.
Since 2017, that's right.
Being their first round pick. And I think they've now flipped it from F those picks to now they have a ton of picks. And I know we'll get there here in a second. And now they're building this team through the draft. So kudos to those guys. I want to throw in Tony Pastors is another guy from their front office that does a hell of a job of managing it all. Again, ton of great guys in that organization from the coaching staff. They got a ton of rock stars on their coaching staff. They got a ton of guys in their front office. John McKay, who is the assistant GM, he was a name that's got a couple interviews. I'm going to give you a name that, and again, this is coming from a biased place. I can always admit my biases. But Ray Farmer has quietly been a home run hire for Les Snead in terms of being someone he can rely on from a personnel perspective. And it's a travesty in my mind as to why Ray Farmer hadn't at least had another opportunity. I know what the public perceives is what happened in Cleveland, but it's one day the truth will come out. I'll just say it that way. And Ray Farmer is someone I respect immensely in this business.
I saw Farmer's name on a list of potential candidates for the Minnesota job at GM. So Maybe someone heard what you're saying. So that's something to watch for sure. I want to circle back before we move on and ask you specifically, because you worked with Les and Sean in Los Angeles. What is the role of a offensive coordinator specifically in Sean McVay's offense? Because you're not calling plays. So what was Mike LaFleur doing, and what can Nate Shieldhouse be expected to do? Because obviously that'll graduate you to bigger and better things, but you're just not doing the game day play calling.
Yeah, you're part of the game planning with Sean. Now, Sean is a lab rat. He's going to be in the lab and kind of just locked in. But you're someone that Sean trusts to help him put the game plan together. But more than anything, your job is making sure that the other coaches, because what typically what happens in a prep week, you put the game plan together, but then each coach is responsible for a phase of the game plan. So there'll be a coach that's responsible for first and second down runs. Then there'll be a coach responsible for third down. Then there'll be a coach responsible for pass protection and the blitz pickups and the blitz looks. So Nate Shieldhouse or LaFleur, they would have been responsible for making sure all those things are aligned with what the game plan is, making sure Sean has everything he needs to be able to put the game plan together, but then also structuring and arranging practice and scripting practice and making sure the practice is scripted to where they can get enough reps at each look and be prepared for the game on Sunday, Monday, or Thursday.
That's a great explanation, because I'm sure a lot of folks will say, well, so-and-so is getting an interview, but they haven't called plays. But you've done so much more that perhaps you don't get to see a peek behind the curtain.
Now, and the other part of it, too, is on game day, they're all on the same channel on the headset. But I know a lot of coaches will lean on their guy. I know Sean will say, hey, Nate, what do you like here? Or if Sean is calling something, Nate may say, hey, Sean, last time we ran that, they gave us this look. We might want to look at it, look at this play and then come back to that. And, obviously the head coach or the play caller is going to listen. But those are the type of conversations that go on over the headset that we don't get to see or hear.
No, that's a great point. Thank you for that. I just learned something. All right, Rand, let's continue to lean on your front office experience. I'm going to give you a list of names of guys that are going to be potential free agents in 2026 in LA in a few days. And you tell me who we're keeping and who we're letting go. Maybe some names that are currently under contract that we need to move on from or restructure. Rams are currently number 8 in available salary cap space. As always, check mark. I have them roughly $48 million in available cap space, which is fantastic news. Here's some of the names: Tutu Atwell, wide receiver, who's going to be a free agent; Cam Curl, Tyler Higbee, Roger McCreary, your favorite person on planet Earth who is not in your family, Jimmy Garoppolo, Rob Havenstein. It feels like, and fans will certainly tell you, that they're quite happy with Warren McClendon as the heir apparent, because he played because of injuries this year. So that's certainly noteworthy. DJ Humphries, Akello Witherspoon, Kobe Durant, Deron Kendrick. So these are all cornerbacks. Quentin Lake, is the safety as well. And the other very obvious elephant in the room, Matthew Stafford, who you mentioned at the top. We got to figure out what's happening with him. And maybe not more importantly, but as importantly, you're going to have to pay Puka. And you got to pay Puka top of the line money. So you got to sort that out. So, all right, the floor is yours, sir. What are we doing?
So if Striker, can we go back to that list of the free agents? So show you how crazy this is. I was still an employee of the Rams when we drafted Rob Havenstein and Tyler Higbee. So Rob Havenstein was the first player that I've ever been a part of where every coach, every scout had the exact same grade on him in the draft process. Right. And so that was the first player, probably the only player. But if I'm looking at this list, I think Cam Curl would be a guy that you would have to consider bringing back, just with the way he's played. He's kind of been that force for them and on the back end, a guy that's been opportunistic and taking the ball away, but he's also a big hitter. That's kind of been a force and an identity for him. I think beyond that, I think there's a world where you could bring Roger McCreary back as your nickel. I'm not even going to talk about Jimmy Garoppolo. I do have an opinion on it, but since you said that's my most favorite player in the whole world, I have to be defiant. I have to be a badass little kid.
After Caleb Downs, I should add.
And so, but beyond that, I think it's time. I think Rob Havenstein may be shutting it down after this year anyway, from a retirement standpoint. I think it's time to move on from Tyler Higbee. Tutu Atwell, who is the speed and the deep threat in that offense, he's just struggled to find a role in that offense. So I think it's time to move on. But just looking at those guys, I think you lead with Cam Curl. And, depending on, the level of play, and I hadn't watched Rodgers tape since he transitioned over in that trade to the Rams, but that's one I would consider because I know him personally. I know what he's made of, and he's made of the right stuff. And so I would consider re-signing him as well.
Because you drafted Roger, correct?
No.
Oh,
Roger was a John Robinson pick.
Okay.
And that was a really good pick. Love Roger. Roger, he's tough. He's competitive. He can go after the football. But more importantly, like him as a nickel, you don't realize that the nickel is essentially the third linebacker. And so when you're asking those, you can't always just put a smaller corner in at nickel. It's a mentality. Because in run fits, you're the C-gap run defender. And if you're not trying to tackle anybody, it's going to be tough for you to play nickel in this league.
And I'll mention quickly Kello Witherspoon, Kobe Durant, and Quentin Lake, who was injured for part of the year, and he was a big part of their success.
I think they did an extension with Quentin Lake.
Oh, okay, good.
Yeah, awesome. They got an extension with Quentin Lake. Quentin Lake has essentially been their big nickel, but if they don't keep Cam Curl, they can easily slide Quentin Lake back to the safety position.
All right, thank you for that update. And I got to mention Harrison Mevis. His contract's up, the kicker, so I would be remiss if I didn't point him out. Harrison Mevis is representing all of us with that body. And I mean that in the best way possible. He doesn't look like Harrison Bucker out there. He looks like Ryan Wilson out there. So
is that the dude they call the thicker kicker?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, the thicker kicker.
Yeah, so shout out Harrison for repping us all out there. All right, the Rams have 10 draft picks. You talk about reversing the F them picks mentality. And in Les's defense, he didn't come up with F them picks. That was sort of a thing that came out of all their success. And they've certainly embraced the idea of draft picks and crushed it with these draft picks in recent years. So they have 2 first-rounders, pick 13 and pick 29. 13 came from the Falcons last year when they traded back up to get James Pierce. So let's play the game here. I'm going to give you some names, and you can take this player at 13 or at 29. Or if you want to get crazy and go outside the box, you can package some deals and go up and get Fernando Mendoza, if that's what you want to do here. But here's some names I have for you at either pick, 13 or 29. I got to start with Ty Simpson, quarterback at Alabama. And he sits for a year, and that feels like a match made in heaven. Cornerback out of Tennessee, Gerard McCoy. Wide receiver out of Arizona State, Jordan Tyson. Caleb Downs, if he's there at 13, what if he falls a little bit? The safety at Ohio State. Pair him with Quentin Lake if Cam Curl isn't coming back. And then finally, maybe somewhere in between 13 and 29, edge rusher TJ Parker, who feels like a younger brother of Jared Verse in terms of his the power with which he plays. Any of those names get you super excited about potential impact. Ty Simpson would be beyond 2026, but 2026 impact especially.
I honestly, I think there's a world where they really do consider Ty Simpson at one of those picks, just because of the nature of the position. Like you said, he could sit a year. That's not forced. He's not forced out on the field prematurely. But I personally love the Jamad McCoy pick coming into the season. He was my cornerback 1, and I love Mansour Delaney too. But he could vault right back up to the number 1 corner, like after I see him move around, see where he is coming off of the ACL. But they need an outside corner that can take the football away. They right. really do. And so I expect them at one of those picks, there's going to be a corner there that they like, that they take. And I really think they need to address the corner. I also think they need to address the inside linebacker position. I think they kind of got exposed some at that second level. They've kind of had a revolving door there. And it's not been, since Ernest Jones being there, they've kind of had Nate Landman made a ton of splash plays for them this year. Troy Reader has played in there. They're playing with the undrafted guy, Omar Spates, in there. They need a complete linebacker in there. So
let me throw this out there.
Say that again.
Let me throw this out there then. At 13, or maybe you trade down or trade up, Sonny Styles.
Absolutely. Absolutely, because I think he fits what I feel they need. They need that athletic guy that can cover in there, because again, we're looking at this division and what you're going to have to do. You have to cover the tight end in San Francisco. You have to cover the tight end in Arizona. You have to cover the back out of the backfield in San Francisco. Seattle, they have guys that you're going to have to cover, and so you're going to need that linebacker in there, especially in nickel, that can play in space, that can cover those guys. And right now, I don't think they have it. So there is a world where you go corner and then linebacker with the second pick, or flip flop it, and they may just wait another year, re-sign Jimmy Garoppolo and wait another year. I do know that they have love for Stetson Bennett in the building.
Okay.
And so there's some love for him. So keep the quarterback room status quo and continue to build the defense.
Stockpile picks, and next year you take Archquavius and you keep it going. There's your Archquavius mentioned. All right, I love that. I'm glad. Thank you for mentioning Sonny Styles. Rams fans, let us know what you think about those options there. Some other options we didn't mention, let us know that too. But it's hard not to get behind the idea of Sonny Styles and a cornerback with those 2 first-round picks. All right, producer Striker, Jim Morris up.
Playoffs? Don't talk about it. Playoffs?
I'll keep saying it as we talk about these teams that are late to get their postseason started because they made deep playoff runs. These are great problems to have. The Rams have been to the playoffs 8 of Sean McVay's 9 seasons. They've been to 2 Super Bowls, won 1. McVay is 92-57 overall, 10-6 in the postseason. Not a lot to complain about. We got to sort out Stafford. Oh, we didn't mention Puka previously, so let's talk about that. Are you going to give him top of the line deal? You can do that this year. You're going to franchise him because that could get sticky.
No, you get it done, and they'll figure out a way to get it done. So to me, that's a non-issue, a non-starter. You mentioned it at the top. They have, north of $45 million in cap space. They only have $700,000 in dead cap space. You can even make another cap casualty move and move on from Darius Williams, who's carrying an $8.6 million cap number. And if you were to cut him, it only comes with a $1.1 million dead cap hit. So you can create even more space to get the Puka deal done. But I think you get that done where you're not carrying that into the offseason. It doesn't become a contentious conversation. So you get that done. And if you're able to get Matthew Stafford back, I mean, this team is going to be right back in it, into the thick of things. And again, improving that defense and getting people out there that can help them make stops on third down is going to only strengthen this team and have them right back in the playoffs again next year.
I agree. I mean, this is a 10-win team, a double-digit win team, north of 10 wins. If you get Matthew Stafford back, if not, we'll see the magic that Sean McVay works with whoever the quarterback ends up being, whether it's Ty Simpson or someone else. But, yeah, it's hard not to be excited about this team, where they are and where they're going. That is it for this edition of The Perfect Fix. Thanks, as always, for joining us in the discussion. Be sure to subscribe if you like what we do here, and we will see you guys in the next one.